everyone, and welcome to Stefan's podcast, the podcast for everything Japanese news and what's going on in my little island. Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. We have got some great news stories for you, so let's jump straight into them. The first news story that has come out of Japan is the price to climb Mount Fuji is now about to double. Originally this year, they introduced a fee to climb Mount Fuji of 2,000 yen per person, so not too pricey. But they are now raising this to 4,000 yen, and we're even discussing whether this should go up to 5,000 yen. The reason why they're introducing the fee apparently is to do with things like cleanup, management, all these different things. But going to 4,000 yen is pretty pricey, and I knew that the Japanese government were going to do this. As soon as I saw that they were starting to get some money from tourists, they seem to be increasing it even more. In places where they weren't charging for things like castles, I believe there's a castle in Ehime that my sister was talking to me about. They recently have introduced a charge to go and see it, and they then, similar thing, doubled it because there are so many tourists coming to visit Japan. But this could be a bad thing because I think that they could start to price out tourists. And I've got loads of news stories about tourism here in Japan, about how it's actually starting to become a bit of a problem, even for someone like me who's lived here for the next 2 years. I am very sad that Mount Fuji are introducing 4,000 yen because here's the thing, it isn't just a 4,000 yen cost to climb Mount Fuji. To get there, you can only climb Mount Fuji between certain times. So you can't go and visit the island between, I believe it is 4 p.m. and 3 a.m. So you have to go outside of those times. That means if you're going there, you're going to probably need a hotel in Yamanashi or anywhere else that you're climbing it. You're going to need food. You're going to need all sorts of things. And I've even seen people who get the the commemorative sticks and get it stamped everything. That is an expensive thing all in its own. So climbing Mount Fuji already is not a particularly cheap thing, and adding a 4,000 yen charge on top of it, I think, is ludicrous. This is meant to be a Japan's most heritage site, and many people, I think, should be able to come and see this and get the chance to climb it. I think what is right, the reason for why they say you can only enter the trails between 3 a.m. and 4 p.m. is to stop people bullet climbing, which was dangerous. So people were coming at weird times, trying to get up and down the mountain as quick as humanly possible, and then coming back down. And some people were having health problems. It was just causing all sorts of mayhem. So those, I agree with you. You should restrict it for people's safety, but charging 4,000 yen when it was only 2,000 yen last year seems like they're just trying to get money. And even in the comments here on the news article, they've got "sounds scummy." They've got one comment here: eventually or quite soon, Japan will price itself out of the tourist market. I actually think this is becoming a problem. And someone here, the fable of the golden goose. Yeah, definitely good. Some good comments on that. But I agree, this is too much. Too much should not be this price. But the next news story for you coming out of Japan, the old Nihongo, is one that affects me. And in fact, all of these stories here actually affect me. I've only been living in Japan for 2 years, and I am actually already being affected by price increases and over-tourism. And I'm just a normal person, so if I'm getting irritated by this, I imagine the Japanese people are getting even more irritated. All of my podcasts before have been how tourists are good, mostly, but now becoming a bit of a problem, but I'll get into it. But this news story sort of half relates to this. I live in Tsushima, and before COVID, there was a boat called the Beetle that used to run from Fukuoka to Busan, and it would occasionally, I believe, stop in Hitataksu, which is where I used to live on the top of the island. But because of COVID, they had to stop this, and it became a little bit more difficult to live in Hitataksu because it's harder to get on and off the island. But they were deciding whether or not to reopen the boat, and they've recently found that they have an issue with the boat that's running back and forward to it in that it's leaking. And because of this leaking, they're not sure whether or not to keep the boat going between Busan or Korea because it's a difficult business, and to be honest, they just don't want to spend their time on. They don't want to spend their time on it. But I'll be honest, I think Tsushima really, really needs this boat to get back up and going because more and more people are leaving Tsushima. Back in, I think, the it was the 70s or 80s, Toshima's population was about 70,000. It is now 20,000. I mean, this is a problem all throughout Japan, but it seems to be even worse in island places because the more people who leave the islands, the more difficult it gets to live here. And even I've noticed since I've been here for 2 years, it's getting less and less and less. When I first started, there was a school in the north of the island that I used to teach at that is now closed, and the little town that it was in just seems to be getting more and more like devoid of people. People are leaving. It's falling into ruin in a lot of places. Even I went to my old apartment, and even that I noticed, like, oh man, this is getting a bit of a problem here. I don't like this, but I hope this boat gets up and running. Of course, they need to fix the boat before they do it. You can't have a boat that's leaking, especially not one going between Japan and Korea, because those waters are particularly rough. Let me tell you that. I've been on that boat a couple of times, and ooh, baby, it is not fun. That is one for seasickness, and I used to live on a boat for 6 months. So if I'm getting seasick on it, let me tell you, a normal person is going to get very, very, very seasick on it. And the person I went with, oh, that was not a nice trip for them. Certainly not. I felt very sorry for them at the end of the trip. In fact, there was a few people I felt very sorry for at the end of the trip. But leading into the next story about why Japan is getting difficult, not just for me to live in, but for other Japanese people, is over-tourism. And the type of over-tourism that is causing a problem is the prices of hotels are going absolutely through the roof. When I first moved to Japan, when I first moved to Toshima, sorry, I went to go to Fukuoka for a weekend, and I had an absolutely fantastic time. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for the hotel, but I remember paying it and thinking, wow, we got a really good deal on this. I assume I probably paid around 20,000 yen for a weekend. So nothing expensive at all, very reasonable for a hotel, especially the hotel that we stayed in had just opened. It was very nice. But now, for me to go to Fukuoka, I tried to go 2 weekends ago because I needed to get off the island quickly. The cheapest hotel that I could find there was 70,000 yen, was about 70,000 yen. Very, very expensive. I looked again to go recently for this weekend coming up, bearing in mind, okay, this is getting close to Christmas and the New Year, but the cheapest price of hotel that I could find was 130,000 yen. That is about 700, $800 for, no, sorry, that would be like $1,300 for a night in pounds. I'm talking like 700, 800 pounds. Just not a night, sorry, for the weekend. So for 2 nights, it would be that much. It is extraordinarily expensive to stay in Fukuoka at the moment. And because of that, I am not going to Fukuoka as much as normal. And there was a news story recently about how this isn't just affecting me, this is affecting all Japanese people, and how the domestic tourism in Japan has gone down recently. And most people are saying it's because the hotels are just too expensive. And the reason they're so expensive is because more people are coming to Japan, so people are booking it. And not only that, American tourists and even British tourists, because the yen was so low, they could charge extra for the hotels, and it's still the same price for them. They still look at it and go, oh, this hotel is only £50 a night, but for us, it's 20,000, 30,000, 130,000 yen. So this over-tourism is becoming a big problem. I don't know how they fix it. The only way that I can realistically think how to fix this is you start having domestic prices for hotels and foreign prices for hotels, which I don't particularly like for this at all. But unless they start building more hotel rooms, how do you make it so that local people are on the same footing as people when the yen is so low? I honestly cannot see any way around that. I really, really hate when people charge 2 prices for things. I don't think it's good. But how would you get around this? What is a solution to this problem? There's news stories here even at the moment, there are caps that, like, the government will pay for, there's a cap of, apparently, I'm just reading the news story here, there's a cap of 10,900 yen for government level employees to stay in hotels. So if I go on a business trip here, I am only allowed to spend, as a sort of mid-level employee, 10,900 yen per night on a hotel room. But in some places, this is getting impossible. If I tried to do that in Fukuoka this weekend, I generally couldn't do it. The only way that I could do this is by maybe staying like in Kyushu or something and then having to get the train down, which obviously if you're there for business, you don't particularly want to do. If I could find on the weekend a hotel room for 10,000 yen a night, I would be doing backflips because that is a fantastic deal. I have not seen a hotel room on the weekend in Fukuoka at that price for about a year. So this is becoming a problem. They're saying there's a lot of like government people who are saying to their bosses like, hey, we cannot travel on this, but that's the maximum that the government have said that they can spend on hotel rooms. So I don't know how you can fix this. The only way would be if hotels start offering discounts for government employees to stay there so that they don't go over this top. And there's a big news story about this. I'm going to put it into the story. The comments on the news story here are saying that I did a Google search. I managed to found some hotel prices for this. The news articles are in Tokyo. So I would have thought that you could find in some of the outskirts of Tokyo, you could find a hotel room for around 11,000 yen a night. I think so. Could I find it in Fukuoka? Absolutely not. I don't know if Osaka is the same. I don't know if Kyoto is the same. Anywhere there's a lot of tourists, this is going to be a big problem. So I don't know. I don't know how we fix that problem. But the final... Oh no, sorry, I've got two news stories coming for you for the next ones are... preschool. This is actually a good one. Japan's population... Oh, why does this keep happening? This is the second time that I've had a link on Japan Today that I want to talk about. And I go and try and read the news story for you. And then bang, it's just gone. I can't find it. Where... What, I'm trying to see if I can find it on Japan Today for you. But anyway, I'll give you the summary of the news story and see if I can find the link again. Basically, the news story was saying how they are now giving free preschool places to children. So children under school level can now go to preschool for free in Tokyo. Originally, they had this incentive for your second born, or I think your third born child could go to preschool for free, but now they've decided to let every single child at preschool level go to preschool level for free to promote tourism to promote people having children in Tokyo, because the Japanese population is falling down, and that is not a good thing. This, I think, is a good incentive. I don't think particularly it's going to be the reason why people have children in Japan. I think the biggest thing that Japan needs to do to increase the birth rate is to bring down the working hours. If they can bring down the working hours, oh baby, I think that will shoot the population up, because most people that I speak to, they're just working too much. There are people... I was doing a presentation recently on Finland and how they're the happiest country in the world, supposedly, according to different charts. And then we start going through, like, why are they the happiest in the world? And you look at it, they do an average work week of about 40 hours. In Japan, it's so much higher than that. There are people who I know consistently, almost every Japanese person I know does not do a 9 to 5. In fact, I am yet to meet... I'm trying to think if I even met... I am yet to meet anyone who does just 9 to 5 here. They always do overtime, and that is a big problem. If you're in a relationship, how can you have children if you're never there? If both the wife and husband are working and they're both doing these overtime, you can't have kids. It's impossible. But it's a nice incentive. There were some comments on the article saying how even though they've destroyed the price for it, so it's free for preschool children to go, that there are a lot of places that are just full. So even though the price is gone, there's no spaces in these preschools. So the next thing then for the Japanese government to fix that would be very easy, just to introduce more preschool places. So bish bang bosh, easier said than done, but that fixes that problem. If I was the head of the Japanese government and I wanted to fix the birth rate in Japan, I would make it so that there's a cap on level of hours that you can work. That, I think, would be a big thing. Cap on overtime for people. And then you've got to then look at higher salaries, I think. The more money you have, the more likely you're going to have children, because you don't have to worry about paying for them. Those, I think, have got to be the top two issues for why people don't have children, right? Time and money. Apart from that, who doesn't want kids? Everyone, most people want kids because kids are fun. I know, of course, some people don't want them, but as being a teacher here, I can tell you they're fun. Kids are a lot of fun, and I think everyone should get the chance, if they want to have kids, because they're fun. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Before coming to Japan, I certainly didn't know if I ever wanted children, but spending so much time with kids, you realize, oh, these guys are great. They're really, really cool. But next news story coming out for you is, an interesting one. In Japan recently, there has been an increase in students who just don't go to school for whatever reason. Even in some of the schools that I've teach at or taught at previously, I was told by many teachers how this is becoming an increasing problem, that there are more and more students who just aren't coming to school. And there are various reasons for this. Normally the reasons are, according to the statistics, some are bullying, some have been left over from COVID, some of the kids just don't enjoy the school at all, some of them have anxiety problems, mental health problems, and that's when this starts to become a problem. But they are becoming support groups for parents, would you believe? They're becoming support groups for parents to go to somewhere where they can talk with other parents who are having these problems about how to get their kids to school. And I think this is actually a really good thing. They're saying in the article, they're saying it as support spaces to vent, but I imagine these are going to turn more into, I'd like to think anyway, that these will turn into places where parents can start saying to other parents, oh, look, hey, this is what worked for my son or daughter to get him going back to school. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? They can talk about it amongst themselves, and hopefully they can start to find some solutions to getting kids back to school. Because the worst thing about this is the longer a student is outside of the school, the more chance that they're not going to go back, because it gets even more difficult every single day that they keep missing school because they fall further behind. And that is the last thing you want to do in school, is to get just completely behind, even though some people say, you don't need school. But at these levels, I think school is very good. The mandatory school age in Japan is up to 15, and then after that, they sort of get to choose where they go, and that's when they start charging for school. But everyone, I think, should stay in school up to about 15, 16. And then after that, if they want to go into a trade, if they want to do something else, well, that's up to them, what they need to do with their life. But certainly staying in school until you're 15, really, I think is a good thing. And to be honest, staying in school now until you're 18, I don't think is so bad, because I wouldn't know, unless you're going into some kind of trade, how you would find a job without staying in school at least until you're 18. I think it would be very difficult now. Most places now, it's even becoming, everyone suddenly now wants a master's degree. It's just getting ridiculous. Like, why do you need a master's degree to work in an office? You don't even need a degree to work in most offices. You don't use them. The only thing that a degree shows is that you turned up to a place on time, normally, and that you were able to complete a few difficult tasks. It doesn't really, I think, show that you're any better than like a high school student, unless you go and do, like lawyer, medicine, architecture, something like that, something particularly difficult. Having like I don't know, what's a degree in writing or literature, if you go into an office, you don't really need it, do you? That's what I think, but there we go. I hope that most kids start going back to school. It would be nice to see them in my classroom, but hey, who knows? It's a mystery how you stop these kids from going to school. In the UK, we have truancy laws, so if I didn't go to school, my mum and dad could get fined, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I believe they could even get prison time if it's particularly bad, but I don't know how bad it would have to get for that. But that is an option. I don't necessarily like that option, because I don't think that parents should be fined if their kids aren't going to school. There should be other incentives to send them to school, not just fines. But what do you think? What's the best way to get these kids going to school? I know a lot of people will say, like, oh, back in my day, we didn't have we didn't have the option to do this, you just had to go, and it's the parents' fault. But there's got to be something going on with this, because it's so widespread in Japan and in the UK and in other places that something is causing this. Maybe it's too much social media. Of course, they had the weirdness of COVID going on, and a lot more just mental health problems seem to be going on with kids. Who knows why? I have no idea why. But that is the end of the podcast for today. Thank you very much for listening. I will, of course, see you in the next episode. I'm trying to get these back more on a regular basis, and I think I'm going to try and do one every Monday and possibly every Thursday and Friday. So hopefully I can keep that going. I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.